Thanks. Okay, well, today's talk uh, would be called The Hero's Journey, and then with the subtitle uh, Ready, Fire, Aim. So, for those of you who came in late, uh, I'm going to turn on the screensaver here if I can get the mechanics of this. Yeah, just so you can see the screensaver for the uh, to get the connection here. There we go. Whoops. Nope. How about that? Yeah, that was whipped up this morning on my kitchen table because I didn't have a screensaver, but then I thought of the perfect screensaver. That's actually a picture from the 90s when I went to a Zen retreat run by the Korean Zen guys in eastern Kentucky. And see if you can find me there. I have hair at that time, and it's darker. That's the hint. I'm actually at bookend with Brother Anthony, the Trappist monk on the right. The two of us went to this Zen 5-day Zen retreat. It was called something like Leaping Tiger, Lose Your Mind, or something like that, because we were just sitting in a lot of silence. Now, why you would do that? Well, that'll be sort of the subject of it. But yeah, in the very center, sort of the middle row, was the Zen master Daegak, bald, of course, and his wife next to him with all that hair, so they sort of averaged out. All right, well, just so you could see that to get the feel of it. And of course, the Golden Buddha is in the back. I could tell you stories about that one, but I'm going to link to that at some point. It has a lot to do with the hero's journey. Ready, fire, aim. Okay, just to give you a view of that. That picture will be on my fridge where it normally is if you ever want to take a closer look at it. Okay, so let's, I can't see, oh yeah, stop the share, there we go. All right, so now we're all back. So the hero's journey. And some of you who were here last week, I gave you some homework. You may or may not have done it, but we'll let that slide. But I said if you can, if it just works out, if you could pay attention to your life and pay attention to find some unresolved issue, some issue that just as hard as you thought, you just haven't been able to work through. Well, that's the stuff of, to even do that, to even spend some time thinking in your normal day, you're starting on the hero's journey. Okay, so and we'll be able to work with that in the meditation. And if you don't absolutely have something to work with, I'll give you something. No problem, no problem. And you can practice. When we'll be doing this same practice, working with some unresolved issue that the Zen master known as life has given you. On Saturday, next Saturday, I'll be doing the morning retreat. Hope you can make it. I'll send out invites, of course, but hope you can make it, for some of it anyway. Well, why would you leave the comforts of home to go to a Zen monastery and sit in silence for hours, for days? Why would you do that? And I could say, well, what calls you to be here this morning? It's the same question. So you could be doing a lot of other things. You might be asking that question yourself in a couple of minutes. Maybe when you were listening to Coltrane, if you didn't have ear for jazz, you might have really said, well, what am I doing here? Well, that song is, the hero's journey is a version of jazz, as you'll learn. So I want to just go through the structure of the hero's journey, east, west, north, south. And it's 3 steps. And just to give you a structure, and then we'll go back to the sitting with the Korean Zen guys, and I'll give you an example of that. Now, so it has three sections or 3 steps, and the first one goes with the ready. At some point, you're ready to leave home. You're ready to venture out. The soul calls you out to go. That's what you're in step 1 here. You left home. You left the confines of your normal thing, and You did this. You leave the known, you leave the comfort zone. Okay. And for me, for instance, and there's two ways to actually do this. One time you sometimes you hear this real calling to go on the soul's journey. The hero's journey is the soul's journey. Okay. And you have a calling to strike out and do something. You don't even know what it is, but you know there's got to be more than this. That's the call. And so sometimes you leave and go on a pilgrimage. Why do people walk the Camino? Why do they leave the comfort of home for all those blisters? It's the same thing. You leave home, you leave the known, okay? And it happens two ways, at least in Western mythology, and the Celtic mythology, and is especially keen to this other way, which was sort of the way, why I got into all this is I was my first year teacher, and I was so stressed out and so out of control because I never went to teacher school. I just came out of grad school in Ireland. The next, there was in Houston. All of a sudden, I was teaching guys like Tommy Bloom from Houston who were just like 4 or 5 years younger than me. And it was an all-boys school, and I was raw meat. So I was really stressed, and I was smoking a lot of weed and trying to, I'd come home, I'd be all stressed out, smoke some weed, get a little perspective, think about how I could survive tomorrow, that kind of thing. But then, my homeroom smelled like a reggae band, really. They come in for homeroom, and, so I had to do something about that. Well, if I'm smoking weed, if you understand the one, it's just, you can't deal with that. So you say, all right, I got to find another way. So I said, well, maybe meditation. Long story about that. But I started meditation not for some kind of journey. I started it for stress relief. Well, that's the other kind of the journey. Now, in Celtic mythology, there's this trope that fits that. You go out and you go out hunting a deer, in the woods, and the deer leads you deeper and deeper into it, and all of a sudden you're into a forest you don't know, unknown territory, and the deer's gone. Yeah, that's part 2. That's the fire part, and that's known as the dark wood. All of a sudden, whether you mean to or whether you just stumble into it, you're in a totally unfamiliar territory. Dante starts out one of the great hero's journeys, the Divine Comedy, as it came to be called. The first line, nel mezzo del cammin de nostra vida, that means in the middle of life, middle of the road of life, I found myself in a dark wood, the way completely lost. That was the beginning. That was boom. Okay. And so you're in a dark wood, and you don't find the deer in kind of European or Western the mythology. You often meet a dragon. Okay. And if any of you guys who like Tolkien or seen The Hobbit, Smaug, fire-breathing dragon. That's part of the fire part. But the fire-breathing dragon who's sitting on a pile of gold. Now, it's interesting. Sometimes even in Western mythology, there's some virgins there, neither of which the dragon can do anything with. Okay. And then, there's some kind of combat usually, and there's the idea of slaying the dragon and all that. And then, and we'll go back to that because you really don't have to slay the dragons you meet. This question you brought in, Carmela last week had this great question. She can't be here today, but it was a great question. It was a mystery question. It was a hero's question. She can't be here today for other reasons, but that's your dragon. And actually, when you really go deeply into what the myth's trying to tell you, you're meeting something fierce, and there's going to be a fierce encounter. This is also initiation phase. You're initiated, and you're killed in a way, even though mostly the dragon gets killed or gets wounded and goes away. And then the third stage happens then. That's aim. You defeat the dragon one way or another, run it through with a spear or whatever, and then you get the gold. And you don't just sit there and start spending it, or looking for a bar in the dark forest. You take it home. So you start leaving home, you have this experience, an initiation experience in which there is some kind of death, both you and the dragon. You die to who you were, you're changed, and then you get this great treasure, and you bring that back to the town, to the home, and everybody is enriched. See, the whole another thing about the hero's journey is it becomes about more than you. It's something that more than just about you, because you bring that gold back. When you really go into this, the gold is your own, is all the parts of yourself that were split off, getting to this point in your life. I haven't come to the end of the parts of myself that the dragon's sitting on. That's another look at the unconscious, these parts. And in this work, you're going into yourself. That's the dark wood. In a few minutes, we'll turn out the lights, sort of. We'll shut our eyes and we'll go inside into the darkness of the self to meet and be met by something. That's scary. The dark has always been scary. Part of the imagery of the blackbird, black is night, and night was dangerous, and all that stuff is working. Dark wood. So you're willing to go into the darkness, scary as it is, face the challenge, even just to go in there, not to run out. Challenge, and then meditation is often where you find the gold. So, and then you don't find it for yourself. I mean, I was out to relieve my own stress. Well, that's just very normal. You're in it to get some result for you. But actually, this game turns into you bring it home, back into your life, back into your encounters with the people you work with, your family. But the gold is those parts of yourself that were split off when you were growing up. You couldn't do that. Family wouldn't tolerate that. Couldn't do that in junior high, that kind of thing. And so you put it away into the hurt locker, into the unconscious, into the dragon load there, you see. So that's the meaning of it. I had up on my board back when we had computers that had sprockets. Remember that? They had sprockets, and then you got the long thing out. That was great for banners when you're in school. So I had this long banner. Never explained it for the kids. It was there the first day, and it was there the last day, and was there from year to year. It said, ready, fire, aim. And so this one year was precious. I've been waiting for this time. This sort of lanky kid who was an athlete and not always present, Lights were dim, that was mostly junior high boys. The lights were normally sort of dim, but they were thinking about something else. And he said, he was sitting there, we had all packed up the books and washed the desks, and he said, Z, he said, didn't you goof up in there? Isn't it a ready, aim, fire? And before I could say anything, this young girl she was hip. She understood the whole class and the whole year. She said, Bill, you don't understand anything, do you? And I said, that's right, Bill. Back to the 7th grade last year, you just flunked. And everybody laughed. And I said, not really. But so this is the essence of jazz too. If you play jazz, it's a hero's journey, because you leave home, and like when they were playing Bye Bye Blackbird, Miles started out, and you could pick out the tune, sort of familiar, comfortable, and then he starts to riff on it, and then Coltrane comes in, and you're totally lost. He's all over the place. It doesn't sound like the song at all. You have to risk that when you go into the dark wood. You have to risk being lost for a while. And Miles said one time, he said, when you're really in playing jazz, there's no possibility of a mistake. And that's true of the hero's journey. You can get lost. You can fuck up. You can end up in a blind alley. I've done all those things. But if the context is you're exploring, you see, and if you're an explorer, you're never really lost. So, and in Coltrane, Miles even was a little, asked Train, he said, Train, why do you go on so long? Why are your solos so long? And Train said, man, I don't play one more note than I need to find out where I'm meant to go. Oh, that's freedom. And that was that middle part where you don't know how long that dark wood period starts and lasts. Uh, and so that's the fire of experience, the fire of, there's also that image of going into the fire. Uh, on Dante's trip to heaven, he wanted to go straight to heaven, and he found out he couldn't. And then he met the dead poet Virgil, who he loved. And this says, well, I'll take you there, but you just can't go directly there. You got to go through hell and purgatory first. There's 3 stages again. Then you get to heaven. You get to gold, and etc. So when he finished purgatory, Virgil said, I can't go farther than this. You got to go on your own now. And he had to walk through a wall of fire, that last purification. And so there's a lot in this hero's journey. And then he was in paradise, which looked like a white rose. It goes through the folds and whatever. It's a great epic journey. And the last line of that, he said, he found love in the very center. He says, the love that had the power to move the sun and all the other stars. Yeah. That was the gold. So when I went to the Zen retreat, these I didn't really know it, but these guys actually use koans. They use these little inscrutable word puzzles, and they say sit with that. They said you just sit with these things, and I was given the one that was called "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" And that's a usual starter one. Another usual first one is who are you? And so I got the one hand clapping one, and it sounded oriental and cool. So I said, well, all right, I'll sit with that. And so the thence commenced probably 8 or 9 interviews with the Zen master. And every time, he said, well, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And my very first interview was really humiliating. I said, well, I think, and he hit the bell. And he said, that's it, too much thinking, go back. And I had to walk out backwards, bowing as I walked out. And so I went through this whole process. And then he would come to Gethsemane, and we did a Christian Zen retreat. So this went on for about a year and a half. And I just kept striking out, too much thinking, or no. Even bought a book that had the answer in it one time. And when I came in, I was really feeling good. And I came in, and he said, well, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And I gave him the answer. And he said, lose the book, and hit the bell, So by the time, I was working on this close to a year and a half, the next year when they came back, usually it was the Sunday before Derby, and that we had the Christian Zen retreat. And so I was through with it. I thought it was the dumbest thing that I ever heard. I said, just tell me a fucking answer, what is this? And he, of course he wouldn't do that. And so I was just through with it. And so I wasn't sitting trying to think up the best answer. I was just sitting, and I actually really even forgot I was just sitting, and so then they put a little card under my mat, which meant you can go get in line to see the Zen master. And I said, oh shit, well, and I was really over it. And so I didn't do anything. I just said, I didn't know what I was going to do. Well, I came in, and he said, well, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And I said, it's the sound of what's been passing for my life up till now. I was sort of angry. I'm just angry. The sound of what's been passing for my life up till now. And no bell. And he went like this. And I thought, shit. But I was confused because I didn't even know where that came from. That did not come from here. See, that the answer to your question, whatever is unresolved, it's unresolved because you couldn't figure it out. You got to give up figuring, and you just sit with it. And he bowed, and then I had no idea why he would accept that. And then he said, don't get too puffed up. So I've got another one for you right here. And he gave me the second one, and I said, well, this is taking me almost a year and a half. I said, how many are there? He said, 534 more. And so I said, oh, shit. So I left angry again. But I left with 2 koans then, 2 of these puzzles. The Japanese word for these puzzles is koan, K-O-A-N. So I had this new one that he gave me. What was your face like before your mother and father begat you? And so I had that, but then I said, well, why was that the right answer? Why did that? And so I had 2, and so I forgot the mother and father and all the before they begat you, and I just was sitting for the rest of the thing with the sound of my life of what my life is amounted to up to this point. So I was sitting with that. Then I was just sitting with, well, why did he accept that response, and what did that really mean? Because I knew it was true. I didn't really know what it meant. And so I was doing the third part then. Once you actually um, break through one of these, see, then it gives you a lot of information. Then you correct your aim. And so I sat with that for the rest of the retreat and ended up writing a poem that was called Waiting for the Thunder. It was written in the late 90s, but it was in the first book of poems, Green Bamboo. Now, I'm going to put that poem in the message tomorrow. It's what I sat with. What did that really mean? It's what my life has amounted to up till now. The sound of one hand clapping. And I knew it was true, but I didn't know where it came from, and I didn't know really then where do you go? Where do you go with that? That was interesting. And so you see that poem tomorrow if you don't know it already. It's an old poem. It's probably 40 years old, at least. But when that happened, but it's still true for me. And so I'll share it with you tomorrow. Now, Jung is helpful here. If none of that helps you out, we got a couple minutes and then we'll just break and actually go down with try to practice this. Jung said there's some things in life that cannot be solved by the rational mind. I mean, your car doesn't start in the morning. I don't meditate. I run through the scientific method. Well, maybe it's the battery, and oh no, but the lights are on and everything, and then you go on to the next thing. You rule things out. It's just the way doctors rule things out when you come in and with an ailment. And so you're using the scientific method. That's great for practical things. I advise it. All of a sudden the lights go out. You don't pray that they come back on. You just say, okay, try the fuse box, and then So the scientific method is great. That's the strategic operating system. Your second operating system. But then it doesn't work with you. So Jung said it was like this: you're facing something that cannot be solved by the rational mind, and the only way to deal with that is to grow through it to where you get to the other side of it, and you turn around and say, oh, and then you see it. Oh yeah, how come I couldn't figure that out before? Well, because it wasn't figure outable. Another example of this, so you have to hang with these things and give them some time and basically sit with them, which is live with them. You have to, you can only dissolve it by living through it. Now imagine you're under a huge table and you're looking up, glass table, and there's a medieval tapestry laying on the table. And all you see from the underside is a bunch of thread. Okay, but if you go to the other side, or you get up and look at the other side, maybe there's a view of a hunt or a festival or something. But on this side, it's just a bunch of thread. You can't, and so you have to go to the other side. So that's what mystics. If you want to know what a mystic does, they follow the current mystery, and they. When you get to the other side, then you could work on, what you learned in the aim. You could write the poem, or you could live differently, see. But on this side, it's just like the dark wood, like, what the hell is that? But so mystics actually navigate by that. Mystic, and then once you get through it, it's just like the Zen master said, then turn around, there's another one there. Life does this. It's really a great deal, because once you dissolve one mystery and you learn something on the journey, then all of a sudden there's another one immediately. It's like the stars. It's like the stars in the heavens. Now ask yourself this: how did slaves in Georgia, when they decided to leave home, which was slavery, how did they get to the north? They had no maps. They followed the North Star. And they went at night, you see. They went at night because it wasn't safe in the day. And then they went at night and they followed the North Star. And what did they do on a cloudy night? Well, try to keep going in the right direction. But everybody has to have something to follow. Well, mystics follow the current unresolved mystery. whatever it is. Okay. And if you have that question, we'll be able to sit with it, and I'll sort of give you some simple instructions of how to do it that I learned from these Zen guys. And if you don't have one, I'll give you one. Okay, a great one that anybody can work with and profit by until you get, but you don't really need a Zen master. Life gives you these things. Life is the great Zen master, you see. So the question is, can you work with them? And when you work your way through it, then you correct your aim, you know, and you're still on the path, but you're on the path rather than in the, underbrush. Okay. Well, I think that's enough for the talk. Ready?